In the wide stretch of dusty plains where the wind never asked permission before tearing through the land, people believed in simple truths. A man was worth his hands. A woman was worth her beauty. And a widow was worth nothing at all. Martha Hale had learned that lesson the day her husband died. The town of Red Hollow had once smiled at her, nodded politely when she walked through the market with her tall, laughing husband beside her. But after the fever took him, smiles disappeared. Eyes turned away, voices lowered, and whispers followed her like shadows. She's too big to be loved. No one marries a fat widow. She'll never survive winter alone. At first, she pretended not to hear them. Then she stopped pretending. Her house stood at the edge of town, half-rotted wood and a roof that leaked when the rain came. The fields her husband had once plowed now lay stubborn and dry. The bank had sent letters. The sheriff had sent warnings. And the world seemed determined to push her into the dirt. One morning, when the sun rose pale and cold, Martha stood outside her house and stared at the empty road. She had heard rumors that a cowboy was coming, someone who bought abandoned land and rebuilt farms. People said he was ruthless. People said he never smiled. People said he never helped anyone for free. By noon, the sound of hooves reached her ears. A tall man rode into Red Hollow on a black horse. His coat was worn but clean, his posture straight, his eyes sharp like steel. Dust clung to his boots, but he carried himself like someone who never bowed to anyone. His name was Daniel Cross. The town watched him with curiosity and fear. The sheriff greeted him with forced politeness. The shopkeeper offered him water. Children hid behind doors. And Martha watched from a distance, her hands clenched in her apron. She knew why he had come. By evening, Daniel stood before her house. He didn't knock. He simply stood there, studying the cracked walls, the broken fence, the silent land. When Martha opened the door, her heart hammered like a trapped bird. "You own this land?" he asked. His voice was calm, but there was something heavy beneath it. "Yes," she answered quietly. "I bought the debt," he said. "Which means the land belongs to me now." The words struck her like ice. She swallowed hard. "I know." Daniel looked at her carefully for the first time. She was not beautiful by the town's standards. Her body was heavy, her face tired, her hair tied back without care. But her eyes held something rare, pride that refused to die. She waited for him to tell her to leave. Instead, silence stretched between them. Finally, she spoke. "No one marries a fat widow, sir," she said, her voice steady but low. "But I can work." Daniel's eyebrows lifted slightly. "I don't need charity," she continued quickly, before her courage vanished. "Let me stay. I'll work your land. I'll clean, cook, harvest, whatever you want. Just don't throw me out." The wind lifted dust between them. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Martha felt heat rise in her cheeks. She had begged before, begged neighbors, begged the bank, begged the sheriff. Every time, she had seen the same look in their eyes, pity mixed with disgust. She expected it now, but Daniel's gaze was different. It wasn't pity, it wasn't disgust, it was something she couldn't name. "No one marries a fat widow," he repeated quietly. She nodded, her jaw tight. Daniel stepped closer. For a moment, she thought he might laugh. Or mock her. Or tell her she wasn't worth the trouble. Instead, he said something that shattered the silence around her life. "Who told you that?" The question was simple, but it hit harder than any insult. Martha froze. No one ever asked her that before. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Daniel looked past her, at the empty fields, the broken fence, the house that still stood despite everything. "This land isn't dead," he said. "It's just been abandoned." His eyes returned to her. "So have you." Martha felt something inside her chest crack. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't kind either. He was honest. "Here's my answer," Daniel continued. "You don't need a husband. You don't need pity. And you don't need permission to exist on your own land." She stared at him, stunned. "I'll rebuild this farm," he said. "But not alone. If you work, you stay. If you stay, you're not a burden. You're a partner." Partner. No one had ever called her that. Tears filled her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I can work," she whispered again, this time not as a plea, but as a promise. Daniel nodded once. Then start tomorrow. From that day, everything changed. Daniel was not gentle. He woke before sunrise, forced the land to yield, repaired fences with his own hands, and expected Martha to do the same. Her hands blistered, her back ached, her breath burned, but she never complained. For the first time since her husband's death, she felt useful. People in town watched with disbelief. Why does he keep her? They whispered. She's too big, too old, too useless. He'll throw her out soon. But Daniel never did. Weeks turned into months. The fields began to bloom again. The house slowly transformed. The farm came back to life. And so did Martha. She laughed again, quietly at first. She stood straighter. She spoke louder. When people insulted her, she didn't lower her head anymore. One evening, after a long day of work, Martha sat on the porch while Daniel fixed a broken saddle. "Why did you let me stay?" she asked suddenly. Daniel didn't look up. "You asked. That's not enough." He paused. Then he said, "Most people beg because they're afraid. You begged because you refused to disappear." She felt her throat tighten. Silence settled between them again, but this time it was not empty. It was full. The town slowly changed its tone. Men began to look at Martha differently, not with desire, but with respect. Women stopped whispering as loudly. Children ran through her fields. But respect did not erase cruelty completely. One day, during a market visit, a man laughed loudly when he saw her. "Still dreaming of marriage, fat widow," he mocked. The words cut deep, even after everything. Before Martha could respond, Daniel stepped forward. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply looked at the man with cold eyes and said, "Say that again." The man froze. The crowd went silent. Daniel's voice was low, but every word was sharp. "She built a farm from nothing while you built nothing from everything. So if you want to measure worth, start with your own life." The man turned away, humiliated. Martha stood there, trembling, not from shame, but from something new. No one had ever defended her like that. That night, she couldn't sleep. She realized something that scared her more than loneliness. She was no longer invisible. And Daniel was no longer just a stranger. But love was dangerous. She knew it. People like her were not meant for love stories. They were meant for survival stories. So she buried her feelings under work, silence, and discipline. Daniel did the same. Until the night everything changed. A storm hit Red Hollow without warning. Thunder split the sky, rain flooded the fields, and lightning struck near the barn. Martha ran outside, terrified the horses would panic. Daniel followed her. In the chaos, a beam collapsed, trapping Martha's leg. She screamed. Daniel reached her in seconds, lifting the beam with raw strength, ignoring the rain, ignoring the danger. When he pulled her into his arms, she felt his hands shaking. "You're safe," he said, his voice rough. She looked up at him, rain mixing with tears on her face. "For how long?" she whispered. He didn't understand at first. Then he did. "For as long as I'm here," he answered. The words were simple, but they sounded like a vow. After that night, something between them shifted. They no longer avoided each other's eyes. They no longer pretended silence was enough. One evening, while the sun painted the plains gold, Martha finally spoke the truth she had carried alone. "You could have chosen anyone," she said quietly. "Someone young, someone beautiful, someone the town would respect." Daniel looked at her. "And you think respect comes from beauty?" She hesitated. "I think people like me don't get chosen." Daniel walked closer. He stood in front of her, so close she could feel his breath. "I didn't choose you because the town would approve," he said. "I chose you because you didn't break." Her heart stopped. "You stood when everyone expected you to fall. You worked when everyone expected you to beg. You lived when everyone expected you to disappear." His voice softened. "That's not something you find in pretty faces." Martha's silence broke, not into tears, but into courage. "Then what am I to you?" she asked. Daniel didn't answer immediately. For the first time, he looked unsure. Finally, he said the words that changed her life forever. "You're not a burden. You're not a widow. You're not a joke." He reached out, gently touching her hand. You're the woman I trust with my land, my work, and maybe my heart.